Portugal Internet Week 2010. De 10 a 17 de outubro, acompanhe as diversas iniciativas que vão tornar Portugal um caso de sucesso na economia digital. Mais informação em portugalinternetweek.com.
A word about OPA Europe. OPA Europe is only focusing on getting together quality publishers. We have publishers from across Europe. Originally, OPA started in the United States, and the United States is an organization focused on the US market, and in Europe we founded OPA Europe a few years later to focus only on the European market and our European market needs in the terms of the quality publishing. So today what we do, we publish quite a few research studies that focus on the quality of advertising on the quality publishing sites. One example is Silent Click study that we did that shows basically how clients, users interact with advertising on the quality publishing sites, and how much better conversion rates we have and see in comparison to the other sites. And the other very important role that we have today in the changing environment is advising and participating in all the regulatory issues that are happening across Europe and at the European Commission. There's quite a few things happening, coming up to either through European Digital Agenda that have to do with the space and regulation of the space of online commerce. So this is a second very important part of what we do. We represent publishers in that area in Brussels. So my presentation will focus on 8 challenges and trends. You have to view them as a kind of a starting points for a conversation than anything else. They are very, very broad topics, and each one of them could be a very long presentation in itself. Just really keep this in mind, and keep this in mind that the digital space is one single market. You do not have any borders in this market anymore. So some trends that start in the US, some trends that start in Europe, they very quickly spread across entire space. And some of them are very important to us, and this is of course from the perspective of a publishing sector. So of course, how to compete with aggregation, the trend of aggregation. So online publishers create original content, and there's quite a few companies on the market that try to take this content and recreate online. So portals, of course, are participating in this, but not only. So this is a good example of what's changing and how fast it's changing. So initially there were just portals, technical companies that were focusing on aggregating news. The very good example of that was Google News a few years back. What's changed? We got the social revolution coming. This is mainly a Facebook, and this very well shows, this chart shows basically what is changing. On the dark, the flat line is basically a traffic that is referring to our sites from Google News. So you see it's pretty much flat, and what's really growing today is the social networking sites. So social networking sites today are the key aggregators for the content for us publishers. This is a big challenge, because it basically means that for publishing websites, we're running a risk of losing a destination, right? So losing the brand, right? People do not come to our sites. They first go to the social networking sites like Facebook to get their news, and they come on the second step to our sites. So this is a big challenge for the publishing business. It's of course a great opportunity as you see the growth, right? There's a lot of traffic coming to our sites. So it's not really clear today still, what will be the balance of that. But nevertheless, in the meantime, of course, we have a third term that is coming, the third trend. It's a farm-driven aggregation. Farm-driven aggregation is a very new thing. It's happening. It's a company called Demand Media, for instance, an example of that. They are companies that create a lot of content on any topic to provide that in any configuration to anyone on Earth. And they try to monetize it very effectively and come in on the side as a publisher. So this is a third trend that we see today in terms of the aggregation, and we're trying to fit ourselves in it. The third one is, of course, the obvious from publishing side is, of course, the issue with the free economy, right? The online, the internet stands in many in many vocabularies as a free marketplace, especially from the perspective of content. So of course this is a major challenge, especially in publishers who know and have diversified revenue streams in other parts of their business, but online generate revenue mainly from advertising. So one of the things that, of course, is changed. What's changed is, of course, the age of pads. The iPad is one example, but of course there are quite a few new ones coming to the market. You know, the Samsung is coming with a new one by the fall, and a few other companies announced as well. But this is a very interesting step for the publishing business. This is basically showing a huge demand. In 1 quarter, Apple created basically a whole industry selling over 4 million pads in United States and across the world. And so all of a sudden you have a penetration that you can use to monetize your content in a different way. You still generate the content electronically, but the propensity, the willingness for people to pay on those devices is much higher. So for all of a sudden you do have opportunity to monetize your content in a new way. Of course, it's not the only one. There are quite a few publishers trying, experimenting with with different models of charging. There are some successful cases. In Europe, Financial Times comes to mind in the professional content space. But this is definitely a category that multi-platform distribution is coming to fruition. So we'll probably hear later a little bit more on the multi-screen strategy. This is part of that multi-screen strategy. Multi-platform distribution is becoming a key in terms of generating new revenue streams for publishers. Third challenge is the video. So especially for the publishers, they're focusing on a content perceived as a written word or photo. This is a big challenge, you know, mainly because of this. This is a chart I borrowed from Wired magazine, which proclaimed the web is dead, but it's a different story. But this is a very interesting chart in itself. You can view it in different ways. But what's key here in terms of time, percentage of time spent on the web. Today, video is over 50%. Over 50% time spent is on video materials. And it grew in the past 3 or 4 years. This is, of course, through the perception of the United States, but this is coming in step with the broadband. So when we talk about Portugal and Portugal is adopting a broadband, this is what's going to happen. The video will be the key driver of this time spent online. And this is a challenge, you know, with that time spent, advertising money is coming to the market, all kinds of transaction opportunities, and the publishers, especially the publishers who are focusing on coming from the magazines, newspaper space, they have a challenge. They have to learn and, you know, adapt very different way of creating content. Basically, they have to create content every possible way. This is a big challenge in terms of the newsroom that you have and how you have to change your workflow processes.